Welcome to Carter's Retro Reviews. Have you ever seen a person from behind and they're wearing skinny jeans and they've got the long hair, typically long blonde hair, and you're like, man, she looks hot. And then she turns around and it's a dude. Those skinny jeans are very misguided. You're sending the wrong signal to everyone involved, including my boner. What do I do with that now? That's like masturbating to Taylor Hanson. I mean, not that I ever have. This One Player is a console launch game which was a Sega exclusive and another side-scrolling platformer from the 90s. It's not a bad game, but the worst part about it is this whole damsel in distress cliched story. I want a different kind of story. Maybe something a little more dark, or something European and a little weird, like the damsel is actually this blow-up doll and the guy I control has an infatuation and wants to get it back from the goons that stole it. And maybe he named her after the famous model he also has an infatuation with, and that there's this backstory that tells us that he's been warned several times to the point of a restraining order, so all he has is this blow-up doll, and it's all a little sad in this small box of a world. But instead, it's all a little too G-rated, and okay, sure, you can have family-friendly platformers, but this game as a whole is clearly pandered to a much different audience, and really, a reflection of its time. I guess it was 10 or 11 when this game came out, and it could have very well been a game I would have loved the shit out of, and maybe I might be singing a much different tune if I owned a Saturn back in the day. I will say that this game did come out before Toy Story as well, so in a way I guess it could be seen as original. But that part of it didn't fill me with any sort of hope for the game. I figured this game can't be that bad anyway because it had a sequel. Presentation of the game is at the very least constant, and the menu presentation is functional. I think it was very cute and a nice touch to have that raised eyebrow be the indicator in the menu option you selected. In-game presentation is perfectly fine. I don't have any particular strong feelings about the look of this game. Graphics in its time would have been considered quite advanced for home consoles, I would imagine. It still looks pretty good with 3D character models on a 2D plane. I'm sure there's a certain charm about it, but it didn't really interest me all that much. That being said, I fucking love platformers, and there's a certain level of polish that quite honestly is amazing to see after the amount of fuck-ups they had with other launch titles. So you really have to appreciate what they got right here. You could take this game down a peg graphically and put it on the Mega Drive comfortably, like these 2.5D planes that are more gimmicky than anything else and aren't particularly integral to the game's key game mechanics. Things like the dollhouses falling down onto the ground for us to use as a platform to advance is a good idea and graphically fits in. But you could have done something similar on the Mega Drive. It wouldn't look as nice, but I still think you could have made it work due to the simplistic nature of the gameplay. The music is very kiddie and in line with the theme. It's not bad, but I have a certain indifference about it that lets me leave it there. I'm sure to someone who grew up with this game would have loved the music far more than I did. Sound effects are pretty good. Gameplay is pretty middle of the road in the sense that everything plays how it should. You control a toy with a key as a weapon, and there are a few moments that I'd be stretched to call puzzle parts where you have to move a battery to the battery slot in order to progress, and other similar types of puzzle. The button layout of the controls are where they should be, and it handles pretty well. If the controls were any less than what they should, I don't think I'd really give this game the time of day. The modes are play or don't fucking play, and it's a one player on top of that, so the replayability is quite limited and lacking. Would I recommend this game? I still would because, well, while it wasn't my cup of tea, it's a competent platformer, albeit a little mundane for me. And I'm sure more people would overlook the theme and the story and give more of a shit about this game than I ever could. It looks good and it handles well. My biggest concern is the sequel. Where do you go from here? If I find out that the princess is in another castle, I'm gonna fucking hurt someone.